Okay, you're all welcome to our IGCSE Environmental Management series. And in this section, we'll be looking at Chapter 4, Water and its Environment, and we'll be looking at Multipurpose Dam Project. So quickly, you can strike the subscribe button below. So once I begin to upload other aspects of Chapter 4, you'll be the first to get a notification about it. Now, the syllabus content for this aspect, which is multipurpose dam project 4.6. So in this 4.6, we'll be looking at how to describe and evaluate multipurpose dam project. And so in this aspect, we'll be looking at how the choice of a site for construction of dams. We'll be looking at the impact, that's the environmental, economic, and social impact of dam construction, and also the sustainability of dam construction. So first, what is a dam? A dam is a hydraulic structure of a fairly impervious material. Now, impervious here is similar to impermeable materials, that are materials that don't allow water to pass through them, and they are built across a river to create a reservoir on the upstream. Remember, a reservoir is built to store water for different uses. Now, so site for impounding water, that's to hold water behind for various purposes, which may include, so some of the importance of a dam include for flood control, for hydroelectric power generation, for water supply, for irrigation to farms, and navigation, that's for transport, fishing, and also for recreational activity. So look at the structure of a dam, because I've seen question before where they will give you a structure of a dam and possibly just ask you some few questions about it. Um, Now, in the structure of a dam, where the river flows from, usually in this direction, you find that the embankment here is impervious, impermeable material that is being constructed will impound the water in this part, forming the upstream region. So these are water that have been impounded, forming an upstream region. Then this part where the water concentration is less, which is usually due to impounding of the water here, is called the downstream region. And any amount of water that flows in the downstream region will be as a result of the excess water in the dam that pass through the spillway. So you find out that a spillway is the opening or space left on the top of a dam for passage of surplus water. By here, you have your gallery, and the gallery are the inspection tunnel, usually constructed in a transverse or longitudinal section within a dam, with a drain on the floor for seepage water. Then the sluiceway is usually an opening at the base of a dam, which is used to empty the dam completely so that silt will not remain. Now, silt are deposition of sand and shingles at the riverbed. So if there is a lot of sand and shingles that are being washed from the hinterland into the river, then you find out that most of them will now be deposited on the riverbed. Then if they keep depositing, then the sedimentation will begin to take place, and the amount of water that can be stored in the dam will decrease. That is why we have the sluice way or sluice gate for this excess silt to be washed away. Now, choosing a site for a dam. Now, this aspect comes out a lot in your exam. And one thing you need to know is usually they will give you a map, not really a map, a diagram. And from the diagram, some diagram will be labeled. So you need to now use it to now explain why it's a good site for dam construction. Now, some might not be labeled, but you use the features that are found around to describe why it's a good site for dam construction. Now, once we are done with our series, we'll now begin to look at classified past question series on environmental management. So just stay tuned, make sure you subscribe so you get the full detail and you'll be fully prepared for your exam. Now, choosing a site for a dam, one major thing they look out for is A dam should be located in an area that have high precipitation. That's where there is enough supply of water. Therefore, there will be less chance of the lake being drying up. And also, low temperature. Low temperature help to reduce the rate of evaporation and water loss. Then you should have steep side or deep valley. Now, when you have a steep slope, it will now provide a very good site for the construction of the dam. So this is a steep slope, then a deep valley here, and which will also be good potential for the generation of hydroelectric power. Now, it should have this steep side also assist in the construction of a dam. Impermeable rocks, that idea of water will not be able to seep or drain away, also for good foundation of the dam so that it will not collapse. Then the lake around should be able to provide water. Rivers around should provide water also. And a way is usually built away from developed area. Why? In order to reduce the pollution, risks of pollution in the dam. Then a dam should also be easily accessible. Then what are the advantages of dam? And we look at advantages and disadvantages of dam. One of the major advantages of dam is used to generate electrical power, hydroelectric power. Now it's also used for flood control. It helps in irrigation to supply water to farmlands. Now create recreational land for tourism and leisure, which will also help to generate money for the local community and possibly for the government. Provision of potable drinking water also to the community. Creation of habitat for wetland species. Access by both to otherwise inaccessible areas, so it can be used for accessibility, that's for transport. It's also a renewable source of energy. Now, water is used to uh, um, is used for hydroelectric power generation, most dams. So you find that hydroelectric power is a renewable energy, and because it's a renewable energy, it doesn't produce greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide will not be produced, and also, it reduces fossil fuel consumption. Now, remember, fossil fuel is a form of non-renewable energy that produces carbon dioxide, which eventually lead to, which is a greenhouse gas that can lead to what? Global warming. So, with the reduction in the use of fossil fuels and due to the availability of dams as an alternative form of energy, you will now help to curb the issue of global warming and increase in the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Now, another advantage of dam is that it creates jobs. If it creates jobs, then obviously it will improve the standard of living of people within the community and increase their purchasing power and also their living standard. Now, but however, there are certain disadvantages of dams. And one of the disadvantages, in order for you to construct a dam, you have to relocate the people that are living within the area. So they'll lose their houses, and also flooding of lands. Now, if the dam is not constructed properly and it eventually collapses, it will lead to high rate of flood around the downstream region. Now, disrupting the life cycle of fish and other organisms that are there during the process of construction. So it helps to disrupt the biodiversity within uh, uh, um, the river, and also it will eventually affect the food chain uh, of organism within that river too. So in the case of food chain and food web, we're going to look at that in chapter 9. Now, dams may become redundant due to the sediment buildup, like I explained earlier about the silt. Now, it's very expensive to build and it requires constant maintenance. It reduces job for farmers. Now, because if the natural fish within the environment is affected during the process of construction, you find out that the fishermen within that part will have to look for alternative job to do. Now, altering water supply for people that is in the downstream. If the water is being stored in the upstream, then people within the downstream will not have enough water within the river in order for them to carry out their own personal, domestic, industrial, and agricultural activities. Now, It also reducing soil enrichment within the downstream because there will be low deposition of alluvium soil, which is very rich and good for agricultural production, uh, agricultural activity. So if that is not uh, river, the water flowing to the downstream is less, then obviously the deposition within the floodplains will also decreases. Now, sustainability of dam. Now, you find out that alternative for burning of fossil fuel as no greenhouse gas are produced. That makes it highly sustainable because greenhouse gas is not produced. It's an alternative for fossil fuels. It does not produce carbon dioxide. Uh, it does not lead to which is so it does not lead to an increase in the greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. So there is no way building of a dam can lead to a global warming. However, there are certain situations whereby dam can now become unsustainable. So you find out that the unsustainability of dam is when reservoir becomes silted due to material carried into it by the river. Silted, that means when there is high amount of deposition of sand and shingles onto the riverbed, then it becomes silted. Then you find out that the bed of the river comes up and the amount of water that can now be stored in the reservoir will decrease. And dam structure under a lot of pressure. So if it is not properly maintained, you find out that it can deteriorate and eventually it collapse and can lead to massive flood. Now, it have negative effect on the environment and fish production. Now, it affects the food chain because some organism can now what migrate and leave the environment. So that's it about multipurpose dam project, the advantages, disadvantages, and the sustainability. So in our next video and our next class, we are going to be looking at water pollution within the environment. So thank you so much for your time.